everyone, and welcome to this episode of Women in Retail Talks. Listen in as Dawn Robertson, partner at Collective Growth Partners and president at Scout and Molly's, discusses the importance of change in retail. Recorded live at this year's Girl Talks East event in New York City. And now, on to the show.
I'm going to talk a little bit about how much, if any of you don't know that fashion is changing. First of all, how many like change? Oh, wow. That is a lot of change agents out there. We are talking, how many really dislike change? Oh, I know. Some of us have to put our hand up a little bit. Well, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up in the same house my entire life. Went to the same college, the same school with all the same friends. And I've not lived in the same house more than 3 years since. So I didn't think I liked change, but you'll see that as we go through that it's really become a way of life and something we're going to talk about tonight. And what I'm going to share tonight is really about how change is good and how you have to change yourself as you evolve throughout your career to continue to be relevant. And that's really what we're going to talk about. Maybe we're going to talk about it. There we go. So this was a caricature done of me. Kind of comical, isn't it? Fashioning change. I decided about a year ago to go back and get my MBA. Now, I'd run tons of companies, and everybody said to me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You've lost your mind. I decided I want to go back and teach at the college level, and even though I've been a CEO for 20 years, to teach at the college level, you have to have an MBA. As crazy as that may sound. So I'm in the middle of getting my MBA. This was on the cover of Auburn magazine where I went to undergraduate. I'm now getting my MBA online. And they thought that was one of the funniest things. My children just thought that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But they did get it right. It is about fashioning change. And it is really about how we continue to evolve. And I think you heard a lot about it, our first speaker, about how she's evolved from different industries. I've been in the same industry, but I've done many, many different things. And I encourage all of you, and we'll talk about that as we go through about how to change. So the first thing I thought about is, what is change? What does it mean, you know? And for me, it's kind of letting go of one trapeze in the air before you catch the next one. So, you know, I think she talked about interviewing, I don't know, once a year, I think was your outside. It is about letting go a little bit. I'll tell you, my story is very much about how you let go and then you try to change. Because interesting for me, when you think about it, you fly solo for a little bit when you do the trapeze, right? You go from one to the next, but there's a bit of air in the middle. So once you get to the new platform, just like in trapeze, if you hang on to the first one or what you were doing before because you're afraid you'll fail, you can't get to the new platform. So you've always been to the same platform, but now you're going to try something new, but you go back to what you knew before because you think it's safe. What's evolved and what's happening faster than ever is that it's not the same anymore. It's not safe. So doing new and doing different is what is happening. Change is letting go, and you've got to really visualize a different and better outcome. So, you know, I'll tell you my story. I grew up in a very traditional department store background, and my counterparts who were CEOs started with me 20 years ago were all not working. And the reason they're not working is because they didn't visualize a different, a better outcome. Department stores were all of you grew up in department stores, right? Some of you are too young for department stores, but they are still alive a little bit. But the more you visualize you're going to do better and you're going to let go, the more comfortable you get with it. And you learn to really grow. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about this. But I grew up in the May department stores a long time ago. Macy's. I grew up and started the Macy's training program right out of college, knew that's what I wanted to do. Became a buyer, a department manager, all the things you do in department stores, and all the way to being an executive vice president of a store. I had 3 children, I was married, I did the whole thing, and I thought I would be in department stores for the very rest of my life. That's what everybody did in those days. You started in department stores, that's what you did. You grew up there. Who's in department stores today? Anybody out here? Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you. We need some of you. But I was there for 25 years between Macy's and May. But I got to a point, I was 31 years old, I had my 3rd child, and a CEO actually said to me, we're not going to make you the CEO because you're too young, you have too many children. I said, right. Somebody said that today. Can you even imagine that? It's a true story. So I said, okay, right, then I'll go to Saks and be a CEO, which is what I did. And as you can see, I went through it. I went back to Macy's and then took some big leaps to go to Meijer in Australia, moved my entire family, and we'll talk about it. Old Navy, Sean John. And what this shows you is that I took a lot of chances. Some really successful and some not so successful. But it's all about learning. So I'm going to take you through it because This, I think, is what's important for all of you that I didn't know as I went through it. You know, one thing I think that I was always clear about, though, is what I love to do and what I wanted to go do. So I started in the training program. I was only the second GMM woman in the May Company history. They didn't have any, and then I got pregnant. Oh, well, happens. And then I went to Saks to be a CEO. I went back to Macy's, and the reason I went back to Macy's, I wanted to learn something new. In department store retailing, you don't really know a lot about vertical. You guys know what vertical means? It's, you know, where you do everything yourself. In department store retailing, you've never done it. So I went back and I ran Macy's merchandising because I wanted to learn how to be a wholesaler and learn about vertical retailing, and I didn't know anything about it. So it was really scary, and I could have really failed, and no women had done it. It's a great success. I'm so glad I did it because it positioned me for something later as I went through my career. Then Terry Lundgren knocked on my door and said, "We want you to go start Macy's.com." I was like, I'm a department store girl. I don't know anything about the internet. I barely have email, you know. So, but we did it. It once again was a chance and took a risk, and it was a great success. And Macy's today, of course, is, you know, over $6 billion, as you know, Macy's.com and Bloomingdale's.com. So a lot of fun. There were no rule books. There was no one to tell you what to do. Email marketing was a lot of chance, just saying. We really didn't know what we were doing, but it was fantastic. Loved it, and I wasn't braiding anybody's hair yet, but I did love the job. But I'll tell you, I got another headhunter, and he said, "Why don't you come learn working in another country?" So after a lot of ado, I moved my entire family to Australia and ran the largest department store there. One of the best learnings I ever had. Scary, really scary. I had a 9th grader. I did not get Mother of the Year for the first bit. But she loved it in the end. We all became Australians and Americans. And what I learned was about culture, and it was about fit, and it was about who I was. You know, when you grow up in a big company like Macy's, you think you know everything. All you Macy's people still think you know everything? You got it right. I thought I did. I knew everything. I went to Australia, and, you know, I put the strategy together. We had the big team meetings. We identified everything. We were ready to go. We were about to execute the strategy. I was running towards the finish line, and I looked behind me, and nobody was there. And I realized that it's a whole different culture. And in Australia, have you been to Australia? Have you been to Australia? Yeah, it's fantastic. But what happens is that they believe in a tall poppy syndrome. And if you think you're a tall poppy, you're cut off at the knees. So they have to be brought on board. They have to understand what you're saying. They have to believe in the strategy. And so I dialed back. We went back through it again. And I really learned about the culture of bringing multiculturals together to make a success. It was a roaring success. We sold it for the biggest price ever in the history of Australia after 5 years. And it was my first entree once again into private equity. Great example of learning and taking change, but really scary, really scary. I was in the air by myself for a long time on that trapeze. Then I went to Old Navy to run Old Navy, and thank God I'd gone back to Macy's because once again it positioned me to be able to know about vertical retailing because I wouldn't have known anything about it. Loved Old Navy. Old Navy, you know, it was very cool when it started, and it had fallen on a few harder times. By the time I got that, I've somehow turned into a turnaround queen, but yikes, that's not a position you always want to be in. But their biggest sellers were dogs. Remember, we loved all the dog stuff at Old Navy. Well, we had to get rid of some of the dog stuff at Old Navy, but it was a great learning, moving to specialty again, large vertical. When I took the Old Navy job, fast fashion was coming. Topshop wasn't here. H&M was coming. Zara wasn't here yet. They were coming. It took us 52 weeks to design product. From the day we did it till the day it hit the floor, it was 52 weeks. Not terribly fast, right? Okay. So clearly there were a lot of issues and opportunities, but what I'd learned from Australia, we put together this great team that took it on and were the champions of turning this product around. We, of course, hired consultants and did lots of research and thought it through, examined Zara, Topshop, and how they were all doing it. And we took it from 52 weeks to 30 weeks, which was quite fast at the time with an 8-week turnaround. But what I learned from that is getting people on board. And we had champions throughout the business who promoted this change. And it was kind of like turning the Titanic when you turn something big like that. So while I loved Old Navy, I didn't love the Gap. So I left San Francisco because I was headhunted by Sean Diddy Combs. Now, that is quite a change, isn't it? Old Navy to Sean Diddy Combs. I admit I thought to myself, you've completely lost your mind. But it was another really good experience. And what about it was such a good experience was that I learned wholesale. I'd never been in wholesale. I wanted to go in wholesale, number one. And number two, I was learning a lot of lessons about culture. Obviously, Sean and I are not exactly the same type person. And he would want to have meetings at 1 in the morning in the middle of LA, in deep in, the dark dungeons of recording studios. And I said, wait, we're not going to do that. But it ended up being a great partnership, and I learned about leveraging different people. And so we really formed a great relationship, and we rebuilt his line from being a street line to being a young men's line. We licensed all of his products to other people, and we did a vodka deal for him, which had nothing to do with his apparel, but that was okay. And then we licensed everything to Macy's for 20 years, and it was a real success. And I was just reading today, he was the richest rapper in 2017. Right, that's because of Sean John, not because of his musical background, but it was a great success, and it was another great learning about taking a chance, because what a chance of something that I had never, ever done. I then went into a plus-size specialty store, which was also another turnaround. Some of my sister people were sitting at my table today, but they didn't know that at the time. And then we sold it to private equity. We did a turnaround, sold it to private equity. I then wanted to go back in production and operations and ran a Canadian company for a bit, learning all about running 250 stores in Canada, as well as supply chain. Then I decided I wanted to do a startup. So I did a startup with LeBron James, the hottest, coolest, newest sneaker. And it was Sneakerheads, if you can imagine, which was pretty fun. And then continuing to learn. It was all about learning. The off-price space, as all of you know, is hot. Anybody in off-price out there tonight? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because, it is a hot space. It's really working. It's what's going on. So I went to Steinmart in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's the fourth off-pricer, but great opportunity. I thought, what a great opportunity to learn a whole new business again and take a chance. Here's the things you want to learn about chances. Make sure you've done a lot of research. Steinmart's still a great company, but was started by a founder, 74 years old, never had a CEO before. How do you think he reacted to change? He didn't really react to change. So, not at all, to be honest. But what did I learn from that? I learned that it's also very much about always changing and learning, but doing your homework before you go. Making sure that you've really researched what that culture is going to be like. Can they take change? I think you heard her talk a little bit about some people can really change and some can't. And that was a great lesson in that it was too inbred in that operation to change. And the stock's $1 today. So, yeah. So here's kind of the sum up. Moore's Law. Do you guys know what Moore's Law is? Okay, I would hope so, yeah. It's growing, fast. Well, Moore's Law in careers is the same. It is going so fast, whether you like change or you hate change, you can handle it. And you got to tell yourself that today. You got to know that you don't have a choice. When this fashion business is completing, it's morphing in a whole new direction. Change is happening, and if you aren't changing with it, you're not going to be relevant. And we talked a little bit. A new friend I met tonight was talking about people that just don't get how fast it's changing, and it is super, super fast. So it is about evolving, changing, not being scared to try something new, understanding who you are and what you're good at, and then dealing with it and beginning to execute. It is once again about delivering results. Results are the most important thing, even in this very fast-paced world, because without results, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how charming you are, what a great merchant you are, if you can't deliver some results. Results are the bottom line. And then another really important thing is about the team building, which we're really about. So you don't have to be depressed and part of the past. I have Macy's in here, but I do love them. It's still close to my heart. Some of these people are out of business, as you know, but that doesn't mean that they may not come back. And that's the reason I have it up there. BCBG, I think, will be back. There's many brands up here that have struggled, not doing well. Doesn't mean you won't be back. So don't write them off. Everybody gets very depressed about how bad retail is and how many brands are going and 8,000 stores are closing, and all that's true. But our opportunities are to be part of the future. And so don't get depressed about what's happened in the past. I'm going to give you a couple things that I've learned. It's okay to be competitive. I've always been competitive, in case you might notice that. I know you would be shocked by that, right? Some people think that you can't be competitive, but every business situation is competitive, and you want to win. Be committed to continuous improvement. Don't settle for good enough for yourself. Growing up in the department store world, we were so focused on doing things a certain way, and I think you were talking about how, Apple does things a certain way. Department stores did the same thing. You got to keep growing. You got to keep learning. As I said, I'm in the middle of getting an MBA, which I'm clearly the oldest one there, but really important to grow. Important to work hard. Work-life balance to me meant very much about having my children. It's funny you say I talk about my children all the time, and it's not that they're not interesting, but they're interesting to me. But it's making very deliberate choices about which opportunities to pursue. I think you heard her say she doesn't pursue them all, right? Because you've got to be very conscious of who you are and what you want. And don't just react to emergencies, but get work that you love. I love what I do, I always have. I still do, not every day, as all of you know. But be very deliberate about what choices you make and have a plan. It's interesting, kind of a consistent theme. Have a clear vision of where you want to go and what you want to be. I knew I wanted to be a CEO, and I knew I wanted to be a decision maker, and I wanted to take the steps to do that. Also, no whining. I really, really dislike people on my team who whine, okay? So focus on how you're going to solve problems, but not whine. I know that sounds like really silly. You have no idea how much whining there is. I mean, there's no point in it. Just be a solution person, not a whiner. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more information, please check out our podcast channel page at www.worldc.com/podcast for show notes. Until next time, this has been Women in Retail Talks.